This is the Brad and Matt Show.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Brad. We're brothers-in-law for over 10 years, and our podcast talks about life's up and downs and the differences between the Northeast and the Midwest.
You're from Greenwood, Indiana.
And you're from New York City.
Take a listen, everybody. Check out our episodes on your favorite podcast platform. Do you know that St. Patrick's Day is actually my favorite holiday of the entire year?
Well, with all your pictures of the Shamrocks and the green beads and everything all over social media, I was kind of gathering that.
Yeah, I kind of go full bore with St. Patrick's Day. And, you know, it's funny because a couple years ago, like, I've always made a big deal out of St. Patrick's Day. I've loved it since I was a kid. And a couple years ago, I did one of those 23andMe things.
Yeah.
It turns out, like, I'm really only kind of, according to my own personal DNA, only like 25% Irish. But it's a bona fide 25%. I mean, my great-grandmother... I know. My great-grandmother, though, was actually from Ireland, from County Mayo. So there is legitimacy there. Yeah, man. But, you know, I love St. Patrick's Day. Green is, like, one of my favorite colors. I love shamrocks. It was a big part of my childhood, so I've just always enjoyed St. Patrick's Day.
Well, there you go. It makes it easy for me to wear green on St. Patrick's Day because the school system that my kids go to, their colors are green and yellow.
Well, that's helpful. I mean, you guys got that probably a lot of green in your wardrobe.
Yes, an extreme amount of green, actually.
Well, I mean, you do live in Greenwood, Indiana.
Well, yeah. Hopefully not for long, but yeah, we're here.
You're there for now.
So, and St. Patrick's Day for me is I'm not quite on the level that Matt is.
Uh-huh.
Just because St. Patrick's Day falls in the middle of the week and I don't have like a white collar job to where I can not go to work the next day. So
Right. See, that's the funny thing about St. Patrick's Day. People don't always take St. Patrick's Day itself off of work. They do take the day after St. Patrick's Day off of work quite a few times.
Correct. And I have celebrated St. Patrick's Day either the weekend before or the weekend after before, but never on actual St. Patrick's Day just because I always have to get up super early to go to work.
Yeah, I know. Right. What time you got to be to work normally again?
5 a.m.
5 a.m.
That's kind of backed off a little bit, but I still have to be there at 7.
Wow.
So it's still a pretty early morning for me.
Bright and early. So for this episode, it's Brad and I just kind of shooting the breeze. We're going to talk about St. Patrick's Day, one of my favorite holidays, as I said. So we got a few things. Should we just kick the music, Brad? What do you think?
Let's go.
It's a Brad and Matt show. It's Brad and Matt. It's a Brad and Matt show. It's Brad and Matt. One's in New York City, the other's in the Midwest. The brothers-in-law, and now they finally met. It's a Brad and Matt show. It's Brad and Matt.
Welcome to Matt and Brad Talking Shit.
So, you don't really have many memories of St. Patty's Day as a child, or?
No, like, I don't think I have really any Irish in me. I don't know. Supposedly, one of my family members have traced back to, I believe it was an Irish woman and a Scottish man got together at some point in my family. Mm-hmm. So if there is any Irish, it's, like point something %.
Right.
So I don't know. I need to take one of those 23andMe tests and check that out. But it just, in my family growing up, it never was really a big to do.
But your wife Risa took one of those 23andMe's, and she's definitely got some Irish DNA, does she?
Actually, she has like 25% 6% Irish in her.
So yeah, it's kind of akin to where I'm rolling with that.
Yeah, she's mostly Italian, and you can
Right.
tell from her attitude.
Yeah, yeah, and as any of our listeners know, Brad's wife and my wife are sisters, so we
Pray for us.
Yes, pray for us. Help us. Help us. Well, so there are certain traditions with St. Patrick's Day that, like, you know, I remember from childhood, and certain ones are so. First off, I think that in America they make a much bigger deal out of St. Patrick's Day than they do in Ireland. As a matter of fact, I was reading a little bit that in in Dublin they didn't really even have a St. Patrick's Day parade until, I don't know, like the early 2000s, like 2004 or something like that, was the first Dublin St. Patrick's Day parade. You know, and it's interesting because, you know, the Irish population, I think the Irish population in New York City is more than the entire Irish population on the island of Ireland. You know?
Exactly, yes.
So the Irish diaspora, I think, is where the celebration of St. Patrick's Day sort of comes from. From an American point of view, anyways.
Yeah.
But that being said, I have a very quintessentially American thing that I love about St. Patrick's Day, and it has to do with one of the greatest American exports worldwide, and that's McDonald's. And McDonald's, every year this time of year, they serve Shamrock shakes. Brad, have you ever had a Shamrock shake?
Hang on, you got to give me a minute. I just threw up in my mouth just a little bit thinking about it. No, I have never had one because that sounds like the most disgusting thing you could ever ingest.
Do you like mint? Are you like into mint at all?
Not really. I mean, those little Andes candy mints.
Yep.
I'll eat the crap out of those.
Okay. So you do have a little bit of, you know, liking the mint.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like I can't even describe the flavor of a Shamrock shake as completely mint, which is questionable since it comes from McDonald's.
I'm sorry. I got to quit thinking about it.
I mean, God knows what's even in those things.
Who knows?
I mean,
people are like worried about what's in this vaccine that we're going to get, but yet they'll go get a Shamrock shake from McDonald's and down that.
And they're slugging them too. They're slugging down Shamrock shakes like it's going out of style. Here's the thing that's crazy about it. So I remember, when you get a Shamrock shake from McDonald's, they're like neon green, right? They're neon green. So much so that when you drink like half of it and then like stick your tongue out, your tongue is coated green. It's interesting. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Secondly, like, it was a big deal when I was growing up because, you know, my grandfather used to take me to my grandfather used to love to go to McDonald's for breakfast. They get the flapjacks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And when it was around St. Patrick's Day, he'd get us a Shamrock shake. So I have memories of, you know, my grandfather bringing me to McDonald's when I was a kid and getting a Shamrock shake because, oh wow, St. Patrick's Day is coming up. They for some reason I remember them tasting differently when I was a kid because I literally got one the other day. All right, so here's the story. You heard about McDonald's just put out a brand new crispy chicken sandwich, and the reason they did that is because they're trying to compete with Popeyes and In-N-Out and like what's the other one? Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
You know, all these chain chicken places. It's the battle of the chicken sandwiches is happening right now culturally, as if we didn't have enough things to worry about in America right now. But while I was there, I was like, hey man, St. Patrick's Day's next week. I'll pick up a Shamrock shake. And you know, your first taste of it, you're like, yeah, okay, I can see some of the minty. You think of Shamrocks, and that affects the way you taste it, I guess. But then I get halfway through it, and it has this weird, like almost like a multivitamin kind of a taste,
like a chemical kind of.
Yeah,
thing?
and I'm like, what is that? What is that? Yeah. And
way.
Thankfully, Brad, I got a small. I was tempted when I ordered it. I'm like, dude, I love these things. I'm going to get a large. I'm so glad I didn't, dude. Like, honestly, I would have been on the toilet probably for the rest of the day, man.
Oh, no. See, that's... I stray away from McDonald's because there's a guy, and I can't give you any information on where to find it, but I'd seen it on the interweb where, like, 15 years ago, a guy bought, like, a Big Mac, a French fry, and he just opened it up and he set it on the counter, and it reached its like 10-year anniversary, and he takes a picture of it every year, and it still looks exactly the same.
I've heard stories like that. There was I remember a story where you know how when sometimes when you work in an office or maybe at your shop or whatever, you kind of have like the workroom fridge, right? Where people who bring their own lunch, they got this fridge you can put your food in. But that's infamously one of those things that nobody ever cleans out, right? It eventually comes down to a directive where management's like, dude, somebody's got to clear this fridge every Friday because it's gnarly, right? And there was a story.
Ours is referred to as the cesspool.
That's disgusting, dude. But there was a story that they cleaned out some company fridge somewheres, and in the back was like a bag of McDonald's. But it was like their old design of the bag from like the 90s or something like that. Anyways, they opened it and it had a Big Mac still in the box, and it was pristine. Yes. It hadn't rotted or anything. I mean, what's up with that? That's
questionable. That's why I try as much as possible to never eat McDonald's.
I'm addicted to it, man.
It's not natural.
It's not natural, but at the same time, I got to tell you, I get a craving for it. You know, here's another funny story. When lockdown first happened last March, which actually yesterday was a year that we went into lockdown in New York City. You guys went in right shortly around the same time, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. I had to have been the same time.
Yeah, it was right around the same time because it kind of like went national pretty quickly back last March.
Yeah.
But that being said, my wife and I, and we've talked about this on the show a few times, we kind of spent the first, 4 months of the pandemic and lockdown literally locked down. Like in our apartment, the only time we left the apartment was to go to the grocery store to get food and to go to the bodega to get some beers. You know what I mean? That was the only way. And when we did, we were so worried about it, man. We were rubber gloves, masks, the whole 9 yards. But anyways, 4 months in, they opened back up McDonald's, right, in my neighborhood. And I was like, I had the biggest craving for McDonald's, and I went crazy, bro. I ordered this stuff on Seamless, and next thing you know, I dropped $55 on McDonald's.
That's more than I spend on my family of 4 when we eat there.
It was incredible, man. I got a Big Mac. Both Shannon and I got Big Macs. I think I got like a mini double cheeseburger. I got like 30 chicken McNuggets. And you want to talk about feeling ill, dude? I gorged myself right there.
Oh,
and
no.
Yeah, it was not a good look.
That's rough. Yeah, no, my kids will eat the crap out of some McDonald's, but we usually will get them McDonald's and we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's worth the extra effort and drive to do it for me.
That's right. So yeah, well, so not really any big St. Patrick's Day memories then coming up.
Well, the only I guess really the only memory is every year there's a canal that runs through downtown Indianapolis.
Okay.
And it's like a big place for people to go and walk, and you can like rent paddle boats and paddle boat in it and stuff like that. Well, every year at St. Patrick's Day, they dye it green, so the water in the canal is green.
Right. That's a big thing in Chicago as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I watch that when they do it on the TV, and really that's the only real memory. What about you?
What are they dumping in the canal and in the river to make it green?
Hey, don't ask questions.
It's crazy. The city government of Chicago, they're like, oh yeah, it's totally cool. I don't know, but are the seagulls turning green? I don't know.
Do they have to have a guy that fishes out the dead fish with a net?
Yeah. And what happens to the green fish? You know what they do? They grind them up and put them in Shamrock shakes, bro.
There you go. Sorry, quit saying that.
Yeah, disgusting, right?
Ugh.
Oh, man. Well, I have many memories of St. Patrick's Day. Many.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, some from childhood and some from my time in New York City. one of the biggest memories. I have a few from New York, but one of the biggest memories I can remember was shortly after I moved to New York. So I moved to New York in the late 90s. So this is maybe a couple years in or whatever. And St. Patrick's Day is a huge deal in New York City, as it is in Boston, you know.
Yeah.
And it is, I mean, it makes New Year's Eve look like child's play. You know what I mean? And every bar in town, obviously not last year or this year, I don't think, because of obviously COVID-19, but in years past, it was just a straight up blowout. And if you're in your late 20s living in New York City, man, it is party central, right?
Yeah.
So much so that one of the first years I decided to go out for St. Patrick's Day. See, that's the other problem with St. Patty's in New York is that people start drinking way too early in the day. Like, we're talking like the bars are open at 9:30. And, I mean, they have pub crawls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I remember there used to be, it's closed down now, but there used to be a restaurant/bar down in Times Square on Restaurant Row, which is right off of Times Square, 44th Street, called O'Flaherty's. And I loved this pub because it was kind of like a library, but like old school, you know?
Yeah.
Like the hardwood and dark wood and stuff like that. But it was like a library, and you could go there and get like a drink and sit there and read a book if you wanted to. You could order bangers and mash. You could order, you know, Guinness stew or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it just had a very homey atmosphere. I think they closed right after lockdown happened. It was one of those places that just couldn't hack it, and like but they're around for a long time. So anyways, one St. Patrick's Day 2000 or so, I decided, you know, hey, I'm going to go down there for lunch. Well, it's also right around the corner from a whole stretch of bars on 8th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. And I got down there, I would say it was 11:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And there were people spilling out of the bars, and I'll never forget, there were two young women. And when I say young, I mean like in their 20s, in a straight-up fist-fight brawl in the middle of the intersection of like 44th Street and 8th Avenue. I mean, they were going at their hair. They were going at, and they were annihilated. And it was like 11:30 in the morning.
Perfect. See, then they can go home. They can black out for a few hours, wake up, and keep partying.
That was the first time I realized the extent of how crazy it could get in New York City on St. Patty's. I've had plenty of other stories with New York. You know, I mean, I was a DJ for a period of time, and I DJ'd I think 3 or 4 St. Patty's in a row, where I was literally working on St. Patrick's Day. And after about 3 of them, I said to the bars I worked at, I was like, yeah, you know, you might want to get the other guy on St. Patty's, because I did 3, and honestly, it's not good for my health.
It's just so different. I mean, I'm sure they party downtown. I personally don't go down there, just because when you get a lot of people together and then you put a bunch of alcohol in that mix, people tend to be dumb.
Yep.
And that's just not my scene.
Yeah.
Even as a young man in his early to mid 20s, that still wasn't my scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I couldn't tell you what I know they have a lot of pub crawls. I'm invited a lot to that stuff, but I don't do it.
Right.
And they have a lot of pub crawls downtown Indy, and they party. I mean, they definitely party down there for sure.
Oh, I bet.
But
would you say Indianapolis has a pretty big Irish population, or Irish American, I should say?
I wouldn't say it's big, but there's definitely a presence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know to the extent of how big it is, but it's definitely present.
Right.
So, but nothing like New York City, I could imagine.
It's interesting. Another quick funny story I have about St. Patrick's Day is one of the years that I was DJing, I was working at a bar on the Upper East Side, Iggy's NYC, giving you guys a shout out. I was working there and DJing, and Iggy, the owner of the place, he has since passed away, but when he was alive, the guy was a character, man. And he called me up. I think I was supposed to. We did I was a karaoke DJ, right? So we did karaoke throughout the entire day. So like starting early, and we had like 3 or 4 karaoke DJs that we were taking shifts. running the karaoke because they had a stage and we were like MCs as well. And so anyways, the guy before me, I don't know what happened, but Iggy called me up. He's like, Matt, I need you. And he was from Ireland too. He's like, Matt, I need you to come in and start early. So I ended up taking a cab over to Iggy's, and I'm like, I called him. I was like, why do you need me to start early? He said, because the parade is just letting out. Well, that was a clue right there, because I'll tell you why. The FDNY and NYPD, they have contingents that march in the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Yeah.
And they're also off duty. So what do they do when they get done with marching in the parade? They have all their pristine uniforms and stuff on, and then it's time to rock. You know what I mean? So he's like, FDNY is showing up. Now, normally when somebody says that to you, that's not a good thing, right? But, like, he's like, we're going to have so much business in here, you got to get in here. So I showed up to work shortly after, like maybe an hour after the parade let out. Yeah. So everybody that was in there, they were already starting to cook. You know what I mean? They had, like, a couple of cocktails in the system. I walk in, it was just filled with literally drunken firefighters, right?
Nice.
And I get to the back, and they're already doing karaoke, and I'll never forget this thing. Iggy at the time, he didn't have a stage, right? So what he did is he took the pool table, and he pushed it against the wall and put a piece of plywood on top of the pool table, and that was the stage, right? So he had, like, this little stairway, and people would climb up on top of the pool table. I walked in, and there was, like, I think the dude was, like, a retired firefighter or something like that.
Yeah.
Old guy. I mean, like, 80, probably, right? Old dude.
Yeah.
And he's, like, crooning some tune. He's singing. And he's kind of, like, swaying a little bit as he's singing. But everybody loves this guy. They're cheering on for him, right? He gets done with his song, and he goes, and it's like a picture in my mind, dude. He turns, and he goes to the step, and his foot just is not going to find that step, right? Dude goes down like a ton of bricks off of, I mean, you know how high a pool table is, right?
Yeah,
You're talking like 2.5, 3 feet high, down,
Boom.
onto the floor, right? Everybody's like, oh, shit, what's up? Like, we're like, this dude totally just broke his hip. He totally, like, we're going to have to call the ambulance. I am not kidding you, man. This dude jumps back up on the pool table, like, yay! I'm like, wow.
It's a party.
It's a party, yeah.
It's a party.
That's one of my St. Patty's stories.
I had a friend of mine call me one year and say, hey, another buddy of ours is having a party. And I was like, I can't go. I was like, I got to work the next day and all that. And he's like, all right. So then the next day at work, I get a text from him, and he says, hey, call me as soon as you get off work. I said, okay. So I get out of work, and I call him. I'm like, what's up? He's like, you think you can come and get me? I'm like, where you at? He's like, I don't really know. Hang on.
Ooh. Oof.
And so I go pick this guy up, and he started drinking at this party and then went to another party and then doesn't really remember where he went after that.
Oh, no.
And then the funny part is we couldn't find his car.
Ooh.
It took like almost 2 days to figure out where his car was.
Wow.
So that is another reason why I don't go out and celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of that kind of stuff. I mean, at least he only lost his car and not his pants that night, because I'm sure that's happened to some people as well.
Well, I didn't say his pants were clean when I picked him up.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, when I was a DJ, it was like my late 20s, early 30s, which I'm 47 now. So looking back, that was like decades ago, you know what I mean? And and I think I finally got to a point where I'm like, I can't, and maybe this is my oldness talking, Brad, I don't know, but like, I'm like, I can't handle that stuff anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no, no way. I mean, it gets to be 9:30 at night, and I'm like a grumpy old-ass man.
Yeah, I can understand that, man. Like, it's, I feel you. But it's like the marathon drinking at a bar.
Yeah.
First off, I don't know where the hell these kids have the money, because honestly, like, pints in Manhattan, they're like $9 a pint. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. And I mean, I've gone to the bar back then, and like, I don't know, you're out with buddies and you're just going to have a good time. Maybe you're playing pool, you're playing darts or something. The next thing you know, you get out of there and you ask the bartender for your tab and it's like $80. You're like, shit, how did I drink $80 worth of this stuff? And then you're like, oh, wait, that's right. I bought this guy a beer. I bought that guy a beer. You know, it's the Irish benevolence sometimes can get you too.
There's been times, though, like on St. Patrick's Day, that the way I've celebrated it is I've sat down and watched a movie that either is based in Ireland or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So we Brad and I, with our last few guests, we kind of started this thing where it's like 5 questions, right, that we would ask guests. And, you know, it's just you and I today talking about St. Patrick's Day, but I came up with like sort of 5 questions to ask you. And that, funny enough, Brad, is the first one I wanted to ask you. Like, do you have a favorite, like, Irish-themed movie? And when I say Irish, it doesn't need to necessarily take place in Ireland, or, you know, it could take place in the U.S., in New York, Boston, whatever. Is there one that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
What's that?
And funny enough, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the movie was made in I want to say either in the early 40s, late 30s or early 40s.
Okay.
And it's The Quiet Man.
I don't think I've ever seen that. What's that one about?
It's with John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara.
Okay.
Basically, John Wayne moved from Ireland to the U.S. and became a boxer.
Interesting. And
he killed a guy, and it was on his conscience, you know, in the ring. He killed a guy, and it was on his conscience, so he ran away from it and went back to Ireland.
Interesting.
My grandfather was a huge John Wayne fan, so I was introduced to him at a very young age.
Okay.
It's not like... It's kind of a cheesy... I mean, it's definitely, because of the time it was made, it's definitely not a PC movie.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still one of my favorites. It's based in Ireland, and they filmed it in Ireland, actually, and just the scenery and...
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to remember, back in the late 30s, early 40s, there wasn't, you know, big skyscrapers or industry or strip malls or none of that stuff.
Right.
So it's just a cool movie to watch for me.
You know, it's funny. I went to I went to Ireland in 2017 with my family. I think I told you about that.
Yes.
And actually, most of Ireland is still pretty quaint. You know what I mean? And I think they sort of keep it like that because, you know, when I was there, we did a bus tour. It was called the Ring of Kerry tour. We went all around Ireland, and a lot of the towns they kind of keep that kind of like small, villagey kind of a feel.
Yeah. Partially,
I think it's for tourism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the flip side of that, you're absolutely correct. When we were in Dublin has construction going on like nuts. There's skyscrapers going on all over the place.
Yeah. So what about you? What you got a movie?
You know, there's a few. I mean, one of my favorites is The Departed. I love Martin Scorcese flicks. Departed was really fun. You know, some of the more Irish American movies. There's like Ed Burns, The Brothers McMullen. Love that stuff. I remember actually just last night, I had some friends over for dinner, and we were watching. You heard about this whole thing that's going on right now with the Tom Cruise deepfake thing?
No.
It's a crazy thing. There's some dude that he's got dark hair, but his facial features don't really look like Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah.
But he's mastered how to do Tom Cruise's voice.
Yeah.
But then he's using this deep fake AI technology to morph his face into Tom Cruise, and it's creepy, right? It's totally weird. It's a trending thing. But I was watching this last night with my friend, and I was thinking about Irish movies, and I was thinking of Far and Away, which I think was movie that it was Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
They had met, I believe, on Days of Thunder.
Yes.
And then they ended up getting married, but they did this Irish movie, Far and Away, and you know, I just, for some reason, I don't know why, and I'm sure he's like half Irish or whatever, but like Tom Cruise doing an Irish accent, I just could not buy. I could buy more of Nicole Kidman's already Australian accent doing an Irish accent, but it was for some reason that just really jarred me. I think.
Yeah. I think I started watching that movie and I was like, nope, can't do it. And I shut it off.
It was a little dry. You know?
Yeah.
It was a little dry. So my next one is, are you a fan of any Irish music? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's a lot of very, very famous Irish musicians. Do you have one that you like, or do you not like Irish music, or what?
It's not that I don't like Irish music, but I was just introduced. Well, not just introduced, but when I met my wife, who is from Mass, the Berkshires, she introduced me to the Dropkick Murphys.
Oh, boy. Well, it's funny you say that.
And really, that would probably, I'd have to say there would be on the top of my list.
Sure. Yep.
This is going to sound crazy, but their music is really good. But
yeah.
Some of the other things that appeal to me is like they have like a cult following.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, they have fans in the U.S., but I guess they're huge in Ireland as well.
They are. They are indeed.
So, and it's just, that would be the one. I listen to them quite a bit. Mm-hmm. How about you?
So it's funny you mentioned the Dropkick Murphys because they are as well one of my favorite Irish American bands, and I have seen them play. I believe last count was 7 times. I've seen them live in concert. They always do a big to do around St. Patrick's Day. They famously play like a 3-night stint most years in Boston.
Yeah,
they do 3 nights, and those shows are like they're sold out like 6 months ahead of time. You know what I mean? It's hard to get tickets to them. But just before they do those 3 days in Boston, they do a run in New York as well. Yeah. So I've seen them. It's usually like the week before St. Patrick's Day or the week after, depending on their tour schedule. Yeah. But they're fun. They're fun. And if you've never seen the Dropkick live, it's it can kind of be overwhelming at first. For instance, I took my buddy Keith to a show. I think my wife had gone with me, and then one year they were in town, and my wife's like, I don't know if I have the energy to go watch the Dropkick Murphys this time, so why don't you take your buddy Keith? So me and Keith went, and the Dropkick Murphys, they always start their show with the lights go down, and they play a Sinead O'Connor song, which is a very low, dirgy kind of a song, and then they kick on with it. They have a song called "The Boys Are Back." Which is just like, and it's a rocker, like hardcore, punky kind of a song. And, they have this really chill Sinead, and then Dropkick hits with "The Boys Are Back." And let's just say my buddy Keith, he was like, the look on his face, he was like, what the hell just happened? And, after the show, I said, or that's what he leans into me. He's like, dude, this is like an Irish blitzkrieg. I'm like, wow, man. Yeah.
One thing they did that was very cool is in the middle of this whole pandemic that we're having, they put on a free live stream concert from Fenway Park on the field of Fenway Park.
That was cool. I watched that. Yeah, that was fun.
And I think it helped a lot of people just kind of get right in their head for a little bit.
Yep.
If not for a week or so, it helped people get right for a little bit.
I agree, and actually, they're doing another one on St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be on their Facebook page. They're doing a live concert. I think it's at 7:00 Eastern. But the other part, the Dropkick, they run the Clada Fund, so a lot of times they raise a lot of money for charity, which is very awesome. So I really love those guys. Not for nothing, Brad. Here's a little surprise for you, but I found out their management company, and I sent them an email. I'm angling. I'm working on it. I'm going to see if I can get one of the Dropkick Murphys on the Brad and Matt show. We'll see what happens. I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee anything. I'm talking with their management team right now, so we'll see what happens.
That would be ridiculously awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the next question of my 5 questions. Now, you said you've never been to Ireland, right?
No.
Right. So if you were to go, which city would you rather go to, Dublin or Belfast?
Well, I don't know a lot about Belfast.
Okay.
So I would probably have to say Dublin.
Okay.
On that. I've just heard that Dublin, and especially like when you get just like on the outer perimeters of Dublin, it's very, I don't know, just the history is
Sure.
what would draw me to there.
Sure.
We watch a lot of things and just about places from back in the day, and people will go and they'll dig up stuff and they'll find stuff from like the 15th century, and I'm just like, that's awesome.
Like some of the Celtic stuff that they unearth? Yeah.
Yes. And so, really, if I'm being honest, I would probably go just about anywhere in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend, like I was telling you, when we went, we did a tour. So we flew in and out of Dublin, but we got to see, Galway and Killarney and a few other towns along the way. I recommend doing that because you get to see the countryside of Ireland as well. Yeah. I got to agree with you. I don't know a lot about Belfast. Yeah. Belfast obviously is the capital city of Northern Ireland, which is actually under the UK, whereas the Republic of Ireland is Dublin's the capital, right?
Yeah.
Belfast, I'm sure, has quite a bit of its own history too, and I think the Belfast history is modern history. It has to do with the Troubles back in the 70s. One thing I will say, historically speaking, that I saw that was fascinating in Dublin was the General Post Office. We had talked about Irish movies. There's another Irish movie I love called Michael Collins, where it's all about the Irish revolutionary Michael Collins. Liam Neeson plays him in this film. But anyways, the Easter Uprising in 1916, which is basically how the Irish Revolution, essentially, it started in the General Post Office. And to your passerby, hey, it's a post office. What's the big deal? Until you think about what happened there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure Belfast has a million sites related to that.
To go there, I think to live there, I think would be ideal.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the weather's not great all the time there, but as a guy that likes seeing the history, I'm all in. Let's go.
It's really interesting. Do you know that Ireland has a law, I guess, that if you can prove that your grandparents were Irish citizens, you can claim dual citizenship.
Really?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, my friend did that. And when I was in Ireland, I found out my mother can do it. I can't do it because both of my grandparents on both sides of my family were born in America, but my mother's grandparents, one of them was from Ireland. So she can literally claim dual citizenship. I asked my mom if she wanted to do it. She's like, I'm going to Ireland on vacation. Do I really need to become a citizen of Ireland? I mean, it's just to have a souvenir passport. You know what I mean? I mean, I think if you were thinking of maybe I'll go live half the year in Dublin or, Limerick or something like that, then it would be worth it. But
yeah. Just to say it, just to do it. I don't think that would be, because it's got to cost money.
Of course, yeah, it does.
I mean, so.
Yeah. So are you and Reese going to be cooking any fine Irish cuisine for the week?
Why, so my kids could starve?
They won't eat it?
No. Like I had mentioned earlier, my wife's mostly Italian.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So there's a lot of sauce that's eaten in this house.
Right.
And a lot of beef.
Yep.
So what are you guys doing?
Well, actually, this afternoon, when we get done recording this, I'm actually throwing in a corned beef and cabbage I'm doing today. And then on St. Patrick's Day itself, which is Wednesday, I've invited my two friends over, and I'm making and I make this every year on St. Patrick's Day, my Guinness Irish beef stew, which is delicious.
There you go. Risa is making shepherd's pie.
Yep, shepherd's pie. That's another one. Yep.
So, but she kind of has to Americanize it so my kids will have anything to do with it.
Right. Well, yeah, it's definitely good stuff. I was going to try my hand at making soda bread this year, which is an Irish traditional bread. The only problem is some recipes call for raisins, and my wife hates raisins with a passion. So I need to make it without raisins, but then again, I'm like, it's gonna turn out I'm gonna be the only one eating this. So maybe I'd be better off just to go to the store and buy a pre-made one than going through all the trouble. I don't know. Man. So I got one last question for you in regards to St. Patrick's Day.
I'm all ears.
Okay. Guinness or Jameson?
Jameson, definitely.
Really? And why?
I'm not a fan of dark heavy beer.
Interesting. Okay.
And the whiskey sounds good.
Okay, what about, say, what is it? I think it's called Harp. Is Guinness's lighter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to drink these things called Black and Tans.
Yep.
Where they would pour like a Bass Pale Ale, or pour half a glass of Guinness and then half a glass of Bass Pale Ale.
Yep.
And something inside the beers made them stay separated.
Yeah.
And then when you drank it, you got a little bit of both.
Indeed, yeah.
But you can only drink, for me anyway, I could only drink like one of those, and then I would be like, my gut would be full.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love Guinness. I've cooked with it when I was in Ireland, dude. And like, you know, here's something that's funny, Brad. You know how, say you go to a bar in Indy, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna buy a pint of Guinness and a shot of Jameson. How much are they going to charge you for each of them in Indianapolis?
Oh, Jesus. The pint of Guinness is probably $12, and the shot of Jameson's probably, I would say, at least $7 or $8.
Wow. It's actually kind of the opposite in New York. So you can get, it depends obviously on the bar, but like you can get a pint of Guinness for, I'd say, $7 in New York.
Oh, that's like
at a cheap place.
That's like a regular domestic beer price here.
Right. So I would say $7, $8 for a pint of Guinness, but you get a shot of Jamie and they're going to charge you $10. Right?
Oh, Jesus.
But here's the funny thing. That's New York City, man. When I was in Dublin, the whiskey's cheaper. You can get a shot of whiskey. I think I paid like at one point like €3 or €4 for it, which is basically like $4.50. You know?
Yeah.
For a Jameson. But then the Guinness, they're going to get you for like $9, $10, you know?
Yeah. No, for some reason, the bars in Indy, they like to charge you for your liquor.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what I mean. I think that's kind of a quintessentially American thing.
Yeah. They're not shy about their prices here. Let's just say that. I mean, you go to, just for example, you go to a craft brewery here and you buy a 4-pack of Tall Boys, and it's $25.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And that's not even drinking it there. That's just taking it home.
Yeah, we got a new wine store in our neighborhood. They just opened and they started selling the craft beer, man, and they're charging that kind of money for a 4-pack of cans.
Yeah. It's so catch-22 for me though, because some of the beers the taste and the flavor are incredible.
Yeah.
But the price is just.
That's your treat. You got to save up for it, man, to get one of those 4-packs. You know.
Yeah.
I tell you, when speaking of Guinness, I did fulfill a life promise when I went to Ireland, and one of those life promises is, you know, when I was growing up, I always said to my father, I said, Dad, one day, someday, you and I are going to sit in a pub in Dublin and have a pint of Guinness. It was like a dream. I always thought, oh, that would be so cool if we could do that someday. And then in 2017 we went, and not only were we in a pub, but we actually went to the Guinness factory at St. James Gate in Dublin, and they have the Guinness Sky Bar there, which the Sky Bar, it's on the roof, it's enclosed in glass, and it overlooks the view of Dublin from up there. And this is the place, actually, I think like Conan O'Brien did it on his show one time where he went to the Guinness Sky Bar and they were teaching him how to pour a Guinness properly and stuff.
Yeah.
But I tell you, if you're on the fence about Guinness and what you're saying about like one of them is enough, when you have it at the Sky Bar, like at the actual factory in Dublin, it's like a transcendent experience, dude. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, and that if the environment would probably change.
Yeah,
you know, because drinking for me is more of a social.
Mm-hmm.
A social thing, so the environment I am would probably change how much I drink.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously at the Sky Bar they're promoting their brand, so they're going to make it as Guinness-centric as possible. Jameson actually has a distillery in Dublin too. We didn't make it to the Jameson distillery, and in retrospect, I'm kind of glad we didn't because like that could have. Yeah, that's whiskey.
That would. I don't know. That'd probably be my first stop.
Yeah. Oh man. So St. Patrick's Day is on Wednesday. Yeah.
Are you guys, is New York, did they cancel their parade?
They did cancel the parade again. I don't know if they're doing anything virtually or not. They didn't. I don't know. I don't think they did last year. Actually, I don't even remember. I got to look back. But I know they canceled. They obviously we're still not to the point yet where. I mean, when the St. Patrick's Day parade is going on normally, 2 million people line Fifth Avenue to watch that.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I read a really cool, interesting thing that I wanted to share about the St. Patrick's Day parade. So every year, the New York City St. Patrick's Day is led by the quote-unquote Fighting 69th New York Infantry Regiment, which is a regiment of the New York National Guard, right?
Yeah.
But they trace back their lineage back to colonial times, but also they fought very famously at the Battle of Gettysburg during the Civil War. And the way they start, it's kind of like one of those cool things. The way they start the parade is the Fighting 69th is always the first regiment that starts the parade. They always march first. And at the beginning of the parade, whoever's the Grand Marshal, they go up and they go to the commanding officer of the 69th and they ask him, "Is the 69th ready?" And the commanding officer says, "Sir, the 69th is always ready." And then they start the parade. I'm like, that is so cool, dude. You know?
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Actually, they say that the term Fighting 69th was given to them by Robert E. Lee, actually, during Gettysburg, because he was like, wow, who are these guys? Like, yeah.
Our parade was canceled as well this year.
Was it?
Yes. One cool thing I did figure out about our St. Patrick's Day parade here in Indianapolis is that it's put on by the Indianapolis Athletic Club, and it has been for since '84.
Okay.
And in that time, they have raised over $350,000+ to help children.
Nice.
They impact over 2,000+ kids a year.
Wow.
And those kids are like for Special Olympics, kids with disabilities, kids that comes from maybe not great home lives and stuff like that. And they're a nonprofit organization, and they put all the money into those kids.
That is awesome.
So
cool.
Yeah. So that makes me now think that when this parade starts back up, I will probably go to it every year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. It's for a good cause, you know?
Yeah. When you can have fun and you can drink, but then also do some good.
Yeah.
In this world, I'm all in. Let's go.
I hear you. Well, man, I think that about wraps us up on time. Brad, happy St. Patrick's Day beforehand to you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Matt.
And we got another episode coming up in 2 weeks. I think we have a guest in mind. We're just sort of waiting on some confirmation. But, yeah, guys, check us. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode of The Brad and Matt Show.
Thanks for listening to The Brad and Matt Show.
Check out our YouTube channel for our video interviews with our guests, as well as additional bonus content. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Brad and Matt Show and at The Brad and Matt 1 on Twitter.
It's the Brad and Matt Show. It's Brad and Matt. It's the Brad and